This is Li Dezhen, and this is how she began Hisense, the $8,000 million company behind the screens used for the VAR system of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The year was 1977 and the place Guangzhou City in China. Handpicked by her workplace, 36-year-old Li Dezhen was in Guangzhou for one thing, and one thing only, to lead her home city, Qingdao, to victory in China's first ever nationwide competition to find the best black and white television that was made in China. Thoughts raced through Li Dezhen as she went through the victory speech she had already prepared. With its state-of-the-art screen, all 12 inches of it, Qingdao's entry was a showstopper, a masterpiece, the pride and joy of Qingdao's second radio factory, the place where Li Dezhen worked. It was the gadget that was going to show the whole of China that Qingdao had not just missed the present, it had arrived straight in the future. At last, Qingdao was finally going to be famous for something other than beer, and Li Dezhen was going to be the one to introduce it. 5 years before, in 1972, a historic visit to China by Richard Nixon, President of the United States, led the Chinese leader, Chairman Mao Zedong, to set up radio factories. Mao Zedong had taken a look at the technology the Americans used and decided that China had a lot of catching up to do. His answer to this was to set up factories dedicated to cybernetics and electronics. Many places in northern China had at least one radio factory, and each factory was not just a factory, but a business unit, a hub for enterprise, owned by the place it was in, as well as the Chinese state. Every radio factory specialized in different electronic gadgets, and the focus of Qingdao's second radio factory was televisions. As Li Dezhen approached the auditorium where all the competition entries for the television contest were placed, people turned to look at her and then avoided her. She wondered why. To her horror, the first thing she saw when she arrived at the auditorium was Qingdao's television. It was right next to the entrance, but the screen was gone, the controls were gone, the aerial was gone. A pile of parts sat where a 12-inch television should have been. It turned out that the contest organizers had put every television in the competition through what they called the earthquake test. In other words, they shook every television vigorously as if their lives had depended on it. Qingdao's television had fallen apart immediately, and because of this, it came last. It was now the first thing to greet everyone in the auditorium, to be held up as an example of how not to build a television. Li Dezhen was mollified. She was so embarrassed and so ashamed at this sorry state of affairs. As a group leader, she did the only thing she could. On the bus back to Qingdao, she said, "We've got to keep going. We came last day, but we can only get better from here. The next time we do this, our televisions are going to be the best televisions in China." 2 years later, in 1979, Li Dezhen and Qingdao's second radio factory submitted another 12-inch television to the black and white television contest, and this time they came second. "No resting on our laurels," said Li Dezhen. "Whatever we make must be the best." She had already set her sights beyond black and white televisions to colour televisions. In 1984, Qingdao's second radio factory was licensed by the Chinese government to make colour televisions. Knowing that her factory had to earn and learn from this, Li Dezhen insisted that Qingdao's second radio factory had to buy the technology for colour televisions from top manufacturers. She also insisted that these manufacturers had to come from outside China. But her superiors opposed her. They told her that cost came before quality and that she ought to buy the technology from a manufacturer who was charging less. Sticking to her guns, Li Dezhen explained that there was a lot to be learned from technology from abroad, and that second-rate technology would be fine for now, but not in the future. When her superiors heard this, they decided to buy technology from Matsushita Electronics of Japan, the granddaddy of the electronics giants Technics and Panasonic. Matsushita was the manufacturer of the top electronic gadgets in Asia and one of the biggest companies in the world at the time. Li Dezhen got more than expected because Matsushita didn't just offload their technical know-how but also their factory equipment. Just 2 years later, in 1986, Qingdao's second radio factory began developing its own line of color televisions. Because of this, Li Dezhen became foreman of the factory. She oversaw all the operations there under her catchphrase, "Our business will survive when our products are the best." It came as no surprise that when China's state-owned enterprises became companies in the 90s and noughties, Qingdao's second radio factory jumped in on the bandwagon and became a privately held company in 1993. The company was known in Chinese as Hisense, not Hoisin, Hisense, and in English as Hisense. The name wasn't accidental. Li Dezhen's ambitions didn't just stop with China. She had realized that the market outside China was boundless. At a time when the phrase "made in China" stood for gadgets that didn't work after a few users, Li Dezhen did all she could to make the best televisions in the world. She chose the English name Hisense first. Sense perception involves using one of the 5 senses to gain knowledge. High sense perception involves using one or more of the 5 senses and even the 6th sense to learn. Having chosen Hisense as a company name, she now needed to find a Chinese sound-alike, and she found it from the most unlikely source. The Chinese character Hai means see, and Xin means trustworthiness or reliability. When choosing these characters as the Chinese name of Hisense, Li Dezhen was inspired by a saying from Zhuangzi, the Chinese philosopher who wasn't sure at the point between sleeping and waking up from a dream in which he was a butterfly, whether he was the butterfly dreaming that it was a man or a man dreaming that he was a butterfly. Of all the bodies of water in the world, said Zhuangzi, who lived from 368 BC to 269 BC, none is as great as a sea, because rivers are able to go home to a sea without knowing when the sea will become full and spill over and turn them away. This is a metaphor. Zhuangzi was saying that a sea is great because it is able to take the waters of every river in without imposing limits and conditions. Anyone, including you, can become great like a sea. To become great, firstly, you'll have to accommodate other people and accept them for who they are. Secondly, you'll have to accept yourself and not put limits on yourself. Thirdly, you'll have to learn from different sources of knowledge. From this, Li Dezhen created a company motto for Hisense: honesty, trustworthiness, and reliability as boundless and as endless as a sea which accommodates 100 rivers. From this company motto, she chose the characters for sea and trustworthiness or reliability, Haisin, as the Chinese name of Hisense. Guided by this philosophy, the way Hisense operated was to buy technology from outside China, use this to make new technology in China, and then sell the new technology outside China at a good price. It was a winning formula that worked again and again and again. For example, Hisense bought fridge-making technology from the British fridge company Fridgemaster, and then created and sold their own line of fridges. They bought technology for making television screens from the Japanese imaging company Toshiba, and then invented and sold televisions with never-seen-before screens. By 1996, Hisense had a factory in South Africa, and by 2015, Hisense branded 4K ULED televisions were being sold in the US. In 2015, Hisense acquired the American businesses of Sharp and manufactured and sold televisions under the Sharp brand. 2018 saw Hisense acquire Toshiba and become a sponsor for the 2018 FIFA World Cup. In the game known as football, soccer, and association football, VAR stands for Video Assistant Referee. As this suggests, a VAR is actually a person, a referee. The VAR has a team of 3 helpers called AVARs, or Assistant Video Assistant Referees. Since the 2018 FIFA World Cup, if a referee of a football match is challenged over a decision, the VAR team looks through different screens at the video footage taken by 42 video cameras around a football field. What they see and replay on these special viewing screens helps the referee to make a final decision, making the screens an indispensable part of the VAR system. This year, the screens for replays and views were all provided by Hisense. There have been no complaints about them so far. Li Dezhen passed away this year at the start of June, having lived long enough to see Hisense become the second biggest television manufacturer in the world in 2022, and to see Hisense's products being used in homes and workplaces around the world, especially in Africa and the Americas. She must have been so happy to know that the electronic equipment made by Hisense are no longer losers in contests but the best in the world, and that they are used in so many places, and even as an important part of the system of refereeing used in top football tournaments in the world. Honesty, reliability, and quality. Li Dezhen used these values to turn a soul-crushing defeat around and to grow a single state-owned factory into a privately owned global giant which now has at least 3 listed public entities that bring in a total revenue of around $8,000 million. That's $8 billion a year. Let's see what Hisense comes up with next and what they will do to improve the VAR system in the FIFA World Cup in future.